Imagine there's a language that could unlock the world for you. A language that could help you cross borders, open new doors, and connect with people from every corner of the planet. A language that could make your voice heard, your ideas understood, and your dreams possible. That language is English. But here's the real question. Why English? Why did this one language rise so high while thousands of others stayed behind? How did a language that once belonged to a small island nation become the passport to success, power, and global communication? Today, here on TWS English Podcast, we're going to uncover that mystery. We'll explore the hidden story, how English rose, how it spread, and how it became the heartbeat of our modern world. So, take a deep breath, because by the time we finish, you'll see English not just as a subject to study, but as the most powerful skill you can ever learn.
Let's rewind time, about 1,500 years ago. Back then, English wasn't a global language. It wasn't the voice of business, science, or entertainment. It was a simple tongue spoken by small tribes living in what we now call England. At that time, the world was ruled by other languages: Latin, Arabic, Greek, Sanskrit, and Chinese. These were the languages of power, philosophy, religion, and empire. English? It was the language of farmers and fishermen, a local dialect with no global presence. No one could have imagined that this humble language would one day become the bridge between nations. But history loves surprises, and sometimes quiet beginnings hide the loudest futures. When the Middle Ages ended, Europe entered an age of exploration. New maps were drawn, new lands were discovered, and new empires began to rise. Among them was England, small in size, but full of ambition. In the 1500s and 1600s, England didn't have the gold of Spain or the art of Italy, but it had something else: the sea. And that changed everything. The English learned to master the oceans. Their ships didn't just sail, they conquered. They built one of the strongest navies the world had ever seen. Those ships carried explorers, traders, missionaries, and rulers, and all of them carried one invisible weapon with them: the English language. As British ships reached the shores of Africa, Asia, and America, they brought English with them. Schools taught in English, courts judged in English, business was done in English. And soon, people who had never seen England were speaking its language. Even when the British Empire began to fade, English refused to disappear. In India, Nigeria, South Africa, and dozens of other nations, it had already become part of daily life, the language of government, education, and business. Children learned it, leaders used it, companies relied on it. English had spread far beyond its birthplace. It had become a global habit. But the story doesn't end there. In fact, this was just the beginning. Because while the British Empire planted the seeds of English around the world, another power was about to make it bloom like never before. A new force would rise, a young, ambitious nation that would shape the modern era and give English its final push to the top. That nation was the United States of America. When the British Empire began to slow down, another power started to rise, stronger, faster, and more influential than any before. The world had just gone through one of the darkest chapters in history, World War II. Nations were destroyed, economies were shattered, and millions of lives were lost. But one country stood up from the chaos, not weakened, but more powerful than ever.
That country was the United States of America. Unlike Europe, America's cities weren't burned. Its factories weren't destroyed. In fact, the war made America richer, more industrialized, and more united. When other nations struggled to rebuild, America stepped forward as the leader of a new world. And with American power came the second great wave of English. The first thing America did was lead the world in business and money. After the war, the US dollar became the backbone of the global economy. Think about it. When nations trade oil, buy gold, or make international deals, they do it in dollars. When global companies sign contracts, they use English. When new financial systems were built, they used the American model, and that meant using the American language. Business travelers, diplomats, and entrepreneurs everywhere realized something. If they wanted to make money internationally, they had to speak English. From New York's Wall Street to Singapore's business centers, English became the language of success. Then came Hollywood, America's secret cultural superpower. While other nations built weapons, America built stories. Stories that touched hearts, inspired dreams, and reached billions. From the silver screens of Hollywood to the music charts of Los Angeles, English became the voice of global entertainment. People in Africa, Asia, and Europe laughed, cried, and fell in love through English movies. They sang along to English songs, copied English accents, and started dreaming in English. When a new song topped the charts, it was usually in English. When a movie broke box office records, it was in English. When kids watched cartoons or teenagers followed global pop stars, it was all in English. Without forcing anyone, America made English cool. The world started learning it not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Then came something even more powerful than money or movies: the Internet. The digital revolution began in America. The first computers, the first websites, and the biggest tech companies all were born in English-speaking countries. Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook all spoke English. The first websites were written in English. The coding languages that built the online world, like HTML, Python, and Java, all used English words. So when the Internet connected the world, English became the default language of the digital age. Even today, more than half of all websites are in English. When you search for information, most of the top results are in English. If you want to study programming, digital marketing, or AI, English is your gateway. It's not just a language now, it's the operating system of modern life. But it didn't stop there. English became the language of science, medicine, and technology. Almost every major scientific paper is published in English. The biggest universities in the world, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, teach in English. The most influential research, from medicine to space exploration, is shared in English. If a scientist in Japan wants to share an invention with a researcher in Brazil, they use English. If a doctor in Egypt reads the latest medical discoveries from the US, it's in English. If a programmer in Pakistan wants to work for a global tech company, English is essential. This language became the link between innovation and progress. And then there's political power. America didn't just lead in science and business,
It also became the global voice in politics and defense. The most powerful international organizations use English as their main working language. The United Nations, NATO, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and more. When world leaders gather for summits, English is the bridge between them. When military alliances discuss global security, they do it in English. It became clear that if you wanted to participate in world affairs, you couldn't avoid English. So from money to movies, from science to software, English wasn't just spreading, it was taking root in every part of human life. By the end of the 20th century, English had transformed from the language of one nation into the language of the world. But the story still wasn't over, because as we entered the 21st century, a new question started to rise. Would English stay on top forever? Or would another language like Chinese, Spanish, or even artificial intelligence take its place?
Now that we understand how English spread across the world, let's shift our focus to something even more important: how to master it in your own life. Because knowing that English is powerful is one thing, but becoming fluent and confident in it, that's where your real transformation begins. So let's talk about that. The first truth about learning English is simple. Fluency doesn't come from studying, it comes from living. Most learners make the mistake of turning English into a school subject, a thing they memorize like math formulas or science facts. But language isn't knowledge, it's a habit. You don't know English, you do English. Think about how you learned your first language. Nobody gave you a grammar book when you were a child. You listened, you repeated, you made mistakes, and slowly you began to speak. That's the same process for English. So stop trying to be perfect. Start trying to be natural. When you talk, don't worry about every rule. Worry about connection. Language is not about correctness. It's about communication. Now, let's make this real with a few examples. Imagine you're talking to a tourist who asks, "How can I go to the train station?" You don't need to reply with perfect grammar like, "You should take the second street on your left and proceed straight for 300 meters." You can just say, "Go left, then straight. The station is close." That's simple. That's communication. That's English that works. Another example, when you're at work and your manager says, "Can you send me the report by tomorrow?" You don't have to overthink. You can say, "Sure, I'll do it," or "Yes, I'll send it tonight." See, you didn't use complicated words, but you still sounded clear, confident, and natural. That's what we mean by living English. Now, here's another truth. You don't need to study more, you need to use what you already know. Most learners keep collecting vocabulary and grammar, but never use it. That's like buying gym equipment and never exercising. You get no results. If you learn 10 new words, try using them that same day. If you watch a movie, repeat some lines out loud. If you read a quote you like, record yourself saying it. Make English a daily activity, not a subject, but a lifestyle. For example, you can change your phone language to English. Watch YouTube videos without subtitles. Listen to English podcasts like this one while walking or driving. Speak English to yourself when thinking or planning. The more you surround yourself with English, the more it becomes your natural voice. Now, let's talk about another big thing: confidence. Most learners are not silent because they don't know enough words. They're silent because they're afraid of being wrong. But here's a secret. Even native speakers make mistakes every single day. Go to America or England and listen carefully. People break grammar rules all the time. They say things like, "It ain't good," or "I seen it yesterday," or "You was late." Perfect grammar doesn't exist in real life. So don't wait for perfection. Speak now, and perfection will come later. Every time you speak, you improve. Every sentence builds your fluency. If you stay silent, you're just practicing fear. So next time someone speaks to you in English, don't hide. Smile. Take a breath and answer. Even if your sentence isn't perfect, it's progress. Now let's touch on something very powerful: listening. Most learners focus too much on speaking, but forget that good speakers are first good listeners. When you listen carefully, your brain starts learning sounds, rhythm, and tone automatically. You don't even realize it, but your mouth starts copying what your ears hear. That's how babies learn, and it works for adults too. Try this. Listen to a short English video every day. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Focus on how words sound. Repeat them out loud. Copy the voice. Copy the tone. That's not childish, that's powerful training. And slowly, you'll notice something magical. You'll start thinking in English, not just translating from your mother language. That's when you know you're becoming fluent. Now, the next step is about emotion. Language isn't just words, it's feelings. When you attach emotion to what you learn, your brain remembers faster. For example, if you learn the word excited, don't just memorize it. Think about a real moment you felt excited. Maybe your first flight, your first job, or your favorite concert. Now say, I was excited. You'll never forget that word again. Emotions give language life. Without emotion, words are empty. So learn English with passion. Feel what you say. Imagine the situations, act it out. That's how you build deep memory. And here's one final truth before we continue. Don't compare yourself to others. Everyone learns at a different speed. Maybe your friend speaks faster. Maybe your classmate remembers words better. That's fine. Your journey is yours. Even the strongest river begins as a small stream. If you stay consistent, if you keep practicing daily, you'll get there, naturally, confidently, and beautifully. That's the message we believe in at the TWS English Podcast. English is not a race, it's a rhythm. You don't need to be the fastest, you just need to keep moving. And as we move ahead, we'll look deeper into how you can train your mind, improve your pronunciation, and make English sound like music. Fluent, natural, and effortless.
Let's now go deeper into what makes English sound beautiful: the rhythm, the pronunciation, and the confidence behind every word. You see, English isn't just about vocabulary or grammar, it's also about music, the melody of speech. When you listen to fluent speakers, you'll notice their voices rise and fall, their words connect smoothly, and their rhythm flows naturally. That's not an accident. That's what makes English pleasant to hear and easy to understand. To master this, don't just study English, listen to it like a song. When you hear someone speak, try to notice their tone. Are they going up at the end of a question? Do they stress certain words more? Do they pause for effect? For example, do you like coffee? The voice rises at coffee. I really love this song. The stress is on really and love. When you start hearing English as music, your pronunciation improves naturally. You don't sound robotic. You sound alive. Now, let's talk about pronunciation mistakes, the thing that makes many learners nervous. Here's something most teachers don't tell you. Accent doesn't matter, clarity does. You can have an accent from Pakistan, Brazil, Egypt, or Japan. It doesn't matter as long as people understand you. Your accent is your identity. It shows where you come from, and that's something to be proud of. But what you should focus on is clarity. Speaking clearly, not quickly. If someone doesn't understand you, slow down.
If a word feels difficult, break it into parts. For example, comfortable to come for to bull, or environment to envi-run-ment. Practice slowly, then naturally increase your speed. The goal is not to sound British or American, the goal is to sound confident and clear. Remember, people don't connect with perfect pronunciation, they connect with real emotion and understanding. Now, let's focus on the biggest secret of all. Consistency beats intensity. It's not about studying for 4 hours once a week. It's about practicing 20 minutes every single day. Small daily habits create fluency. Imagine two people. One studies hard for a whole day, then stops for a week. The other studies 20 minutes every morning. After 3 months, the second person wins, because language learning is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So create out loud. These small moments build fluency faster than long study sessions. That's how successful learners do it. They make English part of their life, like brushing their teeth or checking messages. Now, let's talk about motivation, the fire that keeps everything alive. Every learner begins with excitement, but many lose energy after a few weeks. Why? Because they don't see quick results. But language is like planting a tree. You don't see growth in a day or two. You water it daily, and one morning, suddenly, it blooms. Fluency comes the same way, slowly, quietly, and beautifully. The key is to enjoy the process. Watch things you love, movies, travel vlogs, football highlights, or cooking shows, all in English. Read things that inspire you, stories, quotes, or news posts in English. Learn from joy, not pressure. Because when you enjoy learning, your brain stays active. You remember more. You improve faster. Here's another secret. Talk to yourself in English. Yes, it may sound funny, but it's one of the most effective methods ever. Stand in front of a mirror and have small conversations with yourself. Ask questions and answer them. For example, "Hey, how was your day?" "It was great. I finished my project and had coffee with my friend." This simple practice builds fluency, confidence, and pronunciation all at once. You're training your brain to speak without fear, without hesitation. If you can talk to yourself comfortably, you can talk to anyone. Now, let's not forget about reading and writing too. Reading gives you vocabulary, structure, and imagination. But don't just read textbooks. Read what you enjoy. Stories, blogs, quotes, or even social media posts in English. Writing, on the other hand, helps you organize your thoughts. Start a short daily journal. Write about what you did today, how you felt, what you learned. You don't need perfect grammar, just express yourself. These small habits slowly build fluency in a complete way, listening, speaking, reading, and writing together. Now, here's something I want every listener of TWS English Podcast to remember. Your English is not just a language, it's your voice in the world. It's the bridge between who you are and who you can become. Maybe one day you'll travel abroad, start a business, teach or inspire others, and English will help you reach people you never imagined meeting. That's why learning English is not just about grammar or exams, it's about freedom. Freedom to express, freedom to connect, and freedom to grow. So never think of yourself as a learner, think of yourself as a communicator. Someone who uses English to share ideas, emotions, and dreams. Before we end, let's recap some golden rules of fluency. 1. Listen more than you study, because listening builds natural understanding. 2.
Speak daily even if you're alone, because silence never builds confidence. 3. Use English in real life. Read menus, signs, or websites in English. 4. Accept mistakes. Every mistake is a teacher in disguise. 5. Enjoy the process. The more you enjoy, the faster you grow. You have everything you need: your voice, your curiosity, your determination. So today, promise yourself one thing. You will practice, not just prepare. You will speak, not just study. You will live English, not just learn it. Because when you do that, fluency won't be a dream, it'll be your reality. Here at TWS English Podcast, we believe your English journey isn't about being perfect, it's about being powerful. One word, one sentence, one day at a time. Keep learning, keep speaking, and keep shining. Because the world is waiting to hear your story, and English is your microphone.